Okay, welcome back. In this video, we're going to set up a basic form in Appsmith, sorry, not a form, a basic screen in Appsmith to access some of the endpoints we've created in our Python. So first thing I'm going to do is go to my browser, and I'm going to go to the web server where where Appsmith is running, and that's going to be localhost colon 8080. Now you know it's 8080 because in the docker compose.yaml, it's right here. It's the public address of Appsmith. So if I load that, I get the confetti, which I love. So I need to create an account. So don't use your Northeastern password or anything like that. Just make something simple up. It's not going to be on the public internet. I'm going to call myself a founder, and I'm just exploring. I'm going to turn these off. We don't need that. Okay, first I'm going to do is go to build on my own. All right, so what I want to do first is, well, let me just give you kind of a tour. When you log in, you'll be inside of an application. But if you want to get to your list of applications, you can click on that little link, which will take you to your quote-unquote homepage. So what I'm going to do is create a new workspace. I'm going to name it project work. And then I want to create, actually, let me make this bigger for you, create a new application. Awesome. So here we are. I'll say this is YouTube demo app. Okay. And a couple things. Over on the left-hand side, you have the different things for the particular app you're working on. So all the different pages that are part of the app, and then the different explorers for the widgets that you have already added, or that just all the widgets there are for different data sources. We won't be using data sources, probably not using libraries either. So in any event, let's go ahead and first start off by creating a query. All right, so I'm going to expand that. I'm going to click New Query, and then I just want to make a blank API. Okay, so let's get the top 5 most exciting, or sorry, most expensive products. So I'll call it top 5. Okay, so what do we fill in here? Well, this looks very much like what we saw with Thunder Client, except here we're going to have the containers directly talk to one another on the private network. So the place where Python is running is called the web container, and its private port is going to be, let's see, let me show you where it is. Where did I? Oh, I folded it. So the private port is 4000. All right, so here it's going to be 4000. Okay. And now you may be like, oh, well, I don't remember what the name of my endpoint is. So I can come back to my code. I'm going to go to products, and the top 5 most expensive, the route is here, the endpoint is here. So I'm going to copy that back to Appsmith, and it's product, so it'll be the prefix with P / the name of the route. Okay, so this is a good start. Let's see what happens when we run it. There we go. We get back the top 5 routes. Okay, so this is good. We're happy with this. So what I'm going to do is now show it on a page. So I'm going to come to page. Let's give it a different name. Let's say this is our top products. I know it's top expensive, but it's not that important right now. Okay, so for widgets, if I want to display a table of data, I'm going to use, yes, you guessed it, a table widget. So I'm going to grab the table widget, and you see there's already stuff in it. So, you know, you can resize it, make it bigger or whatnot. So if you're familiar with coding basically in any language, from an object-oriented perspective, you can just think of these individual widgets like the table and then the button on the table and whatnot as objects or variables on which you can call information. So if I want to change basically the variable name of the table, I'll call this, I'll change it over here. So I'll say like top 5 table, okay? Now in terms of the content, right now it has some basically hard-coded content, but I don't want that. I want the result of the query. So I need to say, don't use that information. I want to bind it to a query. So I'm going to choose top 5. And as soon as I do that, you can see that it shows me the top 5 products. Basically, it executes the query. Oops. Okay. Now, if you don't like these column headers or anything like that, you can come over to this Explorer on the right-hand side and change them. So let's say I want to call this list price, and I want to put a colon, and I want this to be product code, and I want this to be product name, and I want this to be reorder level, okay? But I really want the product code to be first, then the name, and then, so I can just drag these around, and you see how in the table view, it actually updates in real time, okay? So that's a simple way to connect your table to a query. So let's say we wanted to have our top 5 and our top 10. So first thing I'm going to do is go back and add another query. And here we'll do top 10. I know it's the same information, but again, details. We're going to do web 4000/p. Oh no, what's the route name? So come back to my code, get the route, 10 most expensive, paste it there. Let's give it a test. Looks like we're good. We have the 10 most expensive items. This is great. Okay, so back to my top products. Do a little resizing here. Then I'm going to add another widget. I'll add another table widget. Okay, here we go. I'm going to name this top 10. And instead of connecting it to the original query, I'm going to connect it to the top 10 query. Do some resizing. You can reorder the columns if you want, rename them, and so on and so forth. Okay? All right. So here's how we can, basically display information. And everything doesn't have to be a table. You can display information, like detail information in, you can just organize a set of labels or inputs or whatnot. But check out the Appsmith documentation for some details on that. Okay, so now it might be time to say I want to add a new product to the database. So I'm ready to create that functionality. So what I'm going to do is first I want to go to the code and add the endpoint for creating a new product. All right, so we're in product, so at products.route, and I'm going to give it the endpoint of product, but with the methods of post. So I'm going to write a post method. Okay, so here we go. Define add new product. Okay. Oops, I need a colon there. Okay, so whenever we want to add a new product, of course, we're going to need the name of a product. We're going to probably need the description and, let's say, the list price of the product. Okay, so where am I going to get that information from? Well, it's going to come from the body or let's say the body of the post request. Okay, so I'm going to say I need to capture the request, the JSON data from the request object. So I'll say the data equals request.json. So remember, the request is the object that gets automatically created whenever Flask basically executes this code. Okay, so this will give me back the JSON object. Let me make sure I have the request object. Yep, there it is. Okay. And for now, all I want to do, let me compress some of this just for efficiency. Okay, so maybe I just want to print out or log the JSON data I get. So I'm going to say current app. Okay, and this will allow me to access the logger for Flask. So I can say current app.logger, and then there's different things you can log: info, debug, error, warning. We're just logging info, and we're going to log the data. Now this is going to come out in the Docker logs. And because this is request response stuff, I'm going to just go ahead and return a success for now. Okay, so let's test this with Thunder Client. So I'm going to go to Thunder Client under product test. I'm going to add a new request, and we're going to call this new product test. Okay, I'm going to make a post request. Here it's going to be to localhost :8001, because that's where Flask is running. Now, since we're not inside the containers like in Appsmith, we have to use the public information. And so just like we did there. Okay, so the route is P and then it's /product because of that right there. Super. Okay, so where do we put some sample data? So I'm going to come here and under the body tab, and we're going to send it as JSON. So I'm just going to create some basic JSON. We'll say product name, and we'll say widget product description, a fancy widget, and then product list or product price 9.99. Now it's not happy with this for some reason. Bad string. JSON wants single quotes. Okay, well, we'll debug it. Okay, so it's not happy with that. Error, invalid JSON. Oh, sorry, I didn't put the names of the the names of the attributes in quotes also. So I just clicked format and it did it for me. I didn't actually know that was there. That's a fun little tip. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the post. Okay, let's see. How do we feel? We have some sample data, products. Okay, so we should basically just get back success when we execute it. So let's send, and we got back success. All right, so let's see, because we logged it, we should be able to see that in the Docker container. And yes, indeed, here we go. It's right here. So basically what we logged was, sorry, it's kind of small, this part right here. The stuff that is before comes from the logger info and products. Okay, so look, we got our information. That's fantastic. All right, back to code. Okay, so now that we have our data, we're going to extract the product name equals the data sub product name, description equals the data sub product description, and then price equals the data sub product price, or is that what I called it? Product, yeah, product price. Okay, now these are the things that are being extracted from the JSON. So that means the JSON needs to send these things. So when we're naming things in Appsmith, I mean, there's ways around it, but we need to name our fields that we create with these same things. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to extract it. Okay. So now that we have that, we can construct our query. So query equals, let's say, insert, I'm just going to do it lowercase, into products. And we're inserting, so we need to know what the attribute names in the database are. So for that, we need to go look at data grip. So I'm going to create a new project. We'll call it project files. And okay, there we go. I'm going to make a new data source for MySQL. And I'll call it project boilerplate. It's going to say localhost. Here we're connecting to port 3200 because the public port for the data container is 3200. Okay, port 3200, root user, ABC123. And let's see, did I do everything I needed to? Yep, so that worked. So we'll click OK. So I know it's kind of small. Let me blow things up a little bit. Let's see, how did I do that earlier? Okay, well, it's okay. You know how to use data grip. In any event, so let's see, use Northwind. We'll go ahead and introspect it. And then we'll say describe products. And it's product name, description, and list price. Product name, description, and list price. Okay, so here, back to our code. All right, so product name, description, DC, list price, values, open parenthesis, and then we're going to construct our query from that. So we need to add in first the name of the product. We need to enclose it in quotes. So the single quotes are enclosing the string, and if I use single quotes, then I can have double quotes inside of them. So the double quote, so we're going to have values, and then we want to put the name of the product. Okay, and then to that, we want to add basically the closing quote. So single quote, closing quote, then we need a comma, then we need another opening quote for the description, query plus equals description plus, now when we're going to do the price, we don't need the price to be enclosed in quotes. So we'll just leave that there. Query plus equals price. And then after price, we are going to, let's see, I think we just need to close the parentheses. Okay. Now, before I execute that against the database, I'm just going to log it to make sure it looks okay. So current app.logger.info query. Okay, so I'll save it and I'll just run my test again to see what happens. Oop, something not happy. So let's see. Unsupported operand for type float and string. So whenever you get an error, you're going to get lots of stuff back. But just look at the title. This is going to give you some good information. Okay, so I can't append a string, a float to a string with concatenation. So I need to convert this to a string. All right, so let's see, run it again, success. So if we look back in Docker, let's look at our insert statement. So here it is, insert into products, product name, description, list price, values, widget, got our quotes, a fancy widget, got our quotes, and $9.99. So that looks like that's good to go. All right, so now we can finish writing the DB, actually connecting to the DB. So I need to grab a cursor. So I'll just steal this. And with that cursor, I cannot spell, C-U-R-S-O-R, we want to execute the query that we constructed above. And then we need to commit, but we don't commit the cursor. We need to send a commit command to the database. So we do db.get db.commit. Okay. And if that all goes well, then we should see it in DataGrip. So let's test it and see. Maybe it doesn't go well, maybe it goes well. We're just going to leave everything the same. So we'll hit send. We got success back. Now we're not really doing any error checking, so something bad like an exception would have to be thrown in order to not get success back. Our real test is going to be by looking at the database. Now, yes, if you've taken software dev, software engineering, I'm breaking like every rule of good software. But this is just meant to sort of whet your appetite for web dev if you haven't done it before. If you've done it before, then you probably know some of the best practices. Okay, so let's look at the database, DataGrip. So I'm going to select star from products. Okay, and if I look down, let's scroll down, there's my widget. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that we have now a post endpoint, a post route for the product resource or product endpoint, and we are collecting the data. Sorry, I'm in Java mode. Collecting the data from the request object. We're extracting the variables, constructing the query, executing, and committing, C-O-M-M, committing the, is it two T's? Committing the insert statement. Okay. All right, so now we have that endpoint done, that route. You'll notice now we have our tests also. So as we're building one, we're testing it. We should write other tests perhaps for, what if we send an empty body? What is this going to do? But I think you get the idea for now. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video. That gives us a post route. And in the next video, now I will actually pick up with Appsmith and make the form so that you can gather data from the user for this particular endpoint. See you in a bit.